On this Friday night, the NHL's top boss on the record about the Hockey Canada sex assault case.
Abhorrent, reprehensible, horrific, and unacceptable.
And how Gary Bettman got on the defensive. Breaking news, the U.S. begins its retaliatory strikes to avenge the deaths of 3 soldiers. Bringing Ukrainian children home.
It is a matter of our own humanity.
Canada's new efforts to reunite families ripped apart by Russia's war.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. For the first time since 5 former and current NHL players who were part of Canada's winning 2018 World Junior Hockey team were charged with sexual assault, the NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman has weighed in.
To take a handful of players in this or other situations and use those allegations and condemn a particular sport, I don't think is reflective of what we are.
The players are preparing to appear in court on Monday. Their lawyers say they deny any wrongdoing and will all plead not guilty. The 5 men are on leave but have not been suspended by the NHL, and the league's commissioner confirmed today they are still receiving pay. Bettman says he needs to wait for the judicial process to play out before the league takes action. Eric Sorensen has our top story tonight.
The All-Star Game is the NHL's promotional spectacle. But with a cloud of criticism overshadowing its big weekend, Commissioner Gary Bettman set out to defend the league as 4 players and a former NHLer now face charges of sexual assault.
From the moment we first learned about this on May 26, 2022, I have repeatedly used the words abhorrent, reprehensible, horrific, and unacceptable to describe the alleged behaviors.
The alleged behaviors date back to 2018. 5 players from the World Junior Hockey Championship team were accused of sexually assaulting a woman in a London hotel room after a Hockey Canada gala. It has been almost 6 years. Bettman said the NHL did not finish its investigation before the charges were laid.
It's taken us about the same amount of time to get to this point as it took the London Police Service, and this was the second time they were investigating it.
The 5 players were all drafted by NHL teams and became part of the star-studded culture of hockey, which some critics say contributes to sometimes bad behavior. Bettman wasn't having it.
I think any characterization that this is a systemic issue is both inaccurate and unfair. 99.9% of the players, certainly in our league, conduct themselves appropriately.
The Players Association echoed those sentiments and would say little more.
99% of the players in the league, you don't have issues with. Again, these players are innocent or proven guilty.
As many youngsters lined up in Toronto for a glimpse of the NHL's best, the league's commissioner had a message of reassurance.
If you're associated with this game, either as a young player or the family of a young player, we believe you can and should be comfortable that this game has every intention of being welcoming, inclusive, and safe as an environment for people to participate.
The accused NHL players have taken a leave of absence from their teams, and while not suspended, they will all be free agents at the end of the season and highly unlikely to be re-signed as the legal process plays out. The 5 men are set to appear in court in London on Monday, and police will hold a news conference in the afternoon. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Also today, the NHL announcing the league's top players will be able to compete in the Olympics again starting in 2026. The last time NHLers competed in the Winter Games was in Sochi in 2014, where Team Canada won gold. The league pulled out of Pyeongchang in 2018 due to travel and insurance costs, along with marketing rights. The NHL did not allow players to participate in the 2022 Beijing Games due to COVID-19. Breaking news in the Middle East, the U.S. has now launched airstrikes on Iranian-backed militias, all in response to the deadly drone attack that killed 3 soldiers at a U.S. military base in Jordan last weekend. Today's strikes targeted dozens of sites used by the militias in both Syria and Iraq after the Biden administration warned there would be retaliation. Reggie Cecchini joins us now from Washington. Reggie, what do we know so far?
Hi, Neetu. Since Sunday, when President Joe Biden said, quote, "we shall respond," we've known something was in the works, although details were a bit nebulous beyond the talking point that these Iranian proxies deemed responsible for this drone attack last Sunday needed to be held accountable. But it's a difficult balancing act. While the U.S. has been clear it doesn't want a broader war with Iran, these groups are connected militarily and financially with Tehran. So what do we know? Well, 85 targets were struck by numerous aircraft, including the long-range B-1 bomber, with U.S. Central Command saying these were command and control centers, intelligence centers, and weapons supply lines. And we're hearing from Syrian state television that these strikes have been deadly. It is noteworthy that this response came just hours after Biden attended the dignified transfer of the 3 service members killed in Sunday's attack. Now, President Biden has been under pressure from some Republicans who argued he wasn't moving fast enough, but this is a moment that carries potential political consequences. This is an election year, and the president has been steadfast in his position of not having the U.S. drawn into a broader Middle East war. And while the White House confirms tonight that strikes will continue at times and places of its choosing, they say it's not expected to be within Iran yet. Neetu?
Reggie Cecchini in Washington. Thanks, Reggie. Calls for transparency within Canada's intelligence community are growing following a Global News report which found CSIS had urged the Liberal government to do more to fight foreign interference. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government has taken action, but questions are being raised about why they didn't act sooner. Abigail Bettman reports.
This is a 1-bedroom accessible unit.
Touring Waterloo, Ontario Friday, the Prime Minister was focused on housing. While Canada's spy agency wants the government to take more action on a different matter, a top-secret CSIS report obtained by Global News says until it views foreign interference as a, quote, existential threat and forcefully and actively responds, those threats will persist.
It is indeed an existential threat to democracy. We have taken action and we will continue to take action.
We wanted to.
The top secret briefing was for the Minister of Democratic Institutions, who spent Friday morning in the hot seat at the public inquiry into foreign interference.
People need to understand the nature of foreign interference, that the threat is real.
The inquiry looks at foreign interference in the 2019 and 2021 elections, and the vast majority of documents have not been released publicly due to their top secret nature.
Foreign interference, especially by China, is the whole iceberg itself. And what we are looking for is the tip of the iceberg.
Dominic LeBlanc was questioned on the need to protect national security versus the importance of transparency.
I wouldn't describe it as a tension. It's a balance.
We may see a situation where the Commission really won't be able to tell us what they know about what's been going on with Chinese interference activities in Canada.
Among those calling for more transparency, a lawyer for former Liberal MP Han Dong.
We will do everything we can to cooperate and help you achieve your mandate through transparency.
Separate from the inquiry, Dong filed a defamation suit against Global News and our parent company Chorus Entertainment relating to Global News reporting that 2 independent national security sources said Dong had a conversation in 2021 with the Chinese Consul General, in which Dong raised the cases of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor and allegedly advised China to delay their release. Dong denies the allegations and calls the stories malicious, irresponsible, and defamatory. Allegations in the statement of claim have not been tested in court.
He has had a career that has been derailed by what has happened, and he has a life that's derailed as well.
The first week of public hearings for the inquiry has now wrapped up. The second of 3 weeks will be held in March. Abigail Bettman, Global News, Ottawa.
The Immigration and Refugee Board has ordered the deportation of a senior Iranian government official who has been living in Canada for the past 8 months. Majid Iran-Manesh was Director General of Iran's Vice Presidency for Science and Technology. He came to Canada last May using a visa issued in Turkey. He said he intended to spend a year at the University of Victoria as a visiting professor. In November, border officials flagged his case, alleging he was still a senior official of the Iranian regime. The 54-year-old is the first to face deportation under sanctions adopted at the end of 2022, which banned senior Iranian officials from Canada. You can read more about the case and the 8 other alleged Iranian officials facing deportation on globalnews.ca/globalnational. In Surrey, BC, police are investigating a shooting that targeted the home of a Sikh activist and a friend of murdered Gurdwara President Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Nijjar's death last year prompted accusations the Indian government was involved in the killing, sparking questions over whether this incident was related. Emily Lazatin is at the scene.
Neithu, the shooting happened here in a South Surrey neighborhood. The home targeted just 5 houses down in this cul-de-sac behind me. Local Gurdwara members say the target of Thursday's early morning shooting is a well-known member of the Sikh community. Simranjit Singh returned to his home early Thursday morning. Minutes later, shots were fired. Outside, a white Tesla damaged by gunfire, the home riddled with bullets.
The shooting also extended to a bedroom upstairs where his 6-year-old son was sleeping, and it went through his headboard and missed his head by about a foot.
Fortunately, no one was injured in this shooting, and we are working with the family and they're cooperating.
The council says Singh was a friend of pro-Khalistan activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was shot and killed in broad daylight outside Surrey's Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara last June.
We fundamentally and wholeheartedly believe that this is India for that reason, is that they killed Hardeep Singh Nijjar here, and they're after people that are his close associates.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused the Indian government agents of killing Nijjar, inflaming tensions between the two countries. India has denied responsibility and allegations the Indian government is trying to silence and kill vocal dissidents.
That somebody firing 20 bullets into his home in the middle of the night, it just shows to us that this is what India would do to frighten or warn or strike fear into the hearts of Sikhs and activists.
Canada, go to India.
Last year, a U.S. indictment revealed law enforcement thwarted a murder-for-hire plot targeting a Canadian-American citizen and Sikh activists living in New York.
In a statement, Gurpatwant Singh Panoon says, in part,
Canada's failure to dismantle and crack down Indian spy networks operating from Indian missions has enabled the Modi regime to continue with transnational repression against pro-Khalistan Sikhs in Canada. Following this latest shooting, 3 prominent Canadian Sikh groups are now demanding standing in the federal inquiry on foreign interference. Surrey RCMP believe the shooting is an isolated incident. We're told that Singh feared for his life, that in recent months he believed he was being followed and reported seeing suspicious cars outside his home. Neetu?
Emily Lazatin in Surrey, BC. Thanks, Emily. He went from the gridiron to Hollywood.
You take this home, throw it in a pot, add some broth, a potato, baby, you got a stew going.
The versatile career of Carl Weathers. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister is in Kyiv to launch a new campaign aimed at returning thousands of Ukrainian children deported by Russia's military. It is Melanie Joly's 4th trip to the conflict zone since the start of the full-scale invasion. She says Canada's support for Ukraine's independent future is unwavering. Crystal Gumansing has more on the surprise visit as the war approaches its 2-year mark.
Outside of Ukraine and Russia, Canada has the largest Ukrainian population. So it's no surprise Melanie Joly was back in the country offering a new kind of support.
Canada and Ukraine will launch a new international coalition to bring back Ukrainian children. We will work with Ukraine to help develop a consular case for each child.
Identifying and returning illegally deported children has been a top priority for Ukraine's First Lady. Exactly how many children have been taken isn't known, but it's believed to be in the thousands. Children have been used as props at Russian rallies, propaganda to support their claim that the so-called special military operation is rooted in Russia saving Ukrainians. At campaign, the Russian defense minister told his colleagues included more than 120 strikes on Ukraine last month alone. Strikes that continue to be concentrated on communities in the east. Russia recently floated the idea of creating demilitarized zones in some areas it occupies in Ukraine, a red herring according to the U.S.
If Russia really wanted to show interest in a demilitarized zone, the thing they could do is start by demilitarizing the parts of Ukraine where there are currently Russian forces.
On the heels of a historic European aid package, which Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán stalled, Orbán said Ukraine will only get weaker the longer the war drags on and more people will die. Ukraine has no plans of giving up, and Canada was praised for its continued support.
What can we say about Canada? You know everything about Canada. Canada is our closest friend.
Since Russia's full-scale invasion, Canada has pledged more than $9 billion, including $2.4 billion in military aid. Jolie's visit to Ukraine did not come with more financial support. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
Ahead, how the high expectations of Canada's international students are clashing with tough realities.
We are pausing the levels at the level they are over the next 2 years to ensure, 2023 levels, to make sure that every student who comes here gets the right experience, which includes adequate and supportive housing, but also a range of other things that go with a quality education.
That is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau defending his government's new 2-year cap on international students, something that could pose a big financial hit for post-secondary institutions. International students are a significant source of funding for colleges and universities, and that's often prompted enticing recruitment efforts to attract them to this country. But they often mask the difficult realities they have to face once they get here. Mike Drolet explains.
So hello guys, welcome back to my channel.
From his Toronto area apartment, Ashish Bhatia dishes out advice. His target audience, international students, many of whom see videos like these
received my Canada visa
and believe visas to study in Canada are easy to get. Bhatia says recruiters working independently of Canadian colleges and universities are selling a dream.
Have you seen a Punjabi music video? Driving those nice cars, having that Challenger and or Dodge Charger with them. The mindset usually becomes that.
It doesn't take long, he says, for reality to set in. High tuition costs, work restrictions, and an oversaturated rental housing market have forced some students into difficult living conditions.
So what will happen? They will have multiple people living in one 2-bedroom apartment, like 6-7 people.
It's a familiar story here in Kitchener-Waterloo. Supply of rental units has not kept up with demand. Just a few years ago, a unit that would get 5 or 6 applicants now gets 30 to 40. Last week's announcement that would cap the number of international student visas was made in part to address the housing crisis. Ontario, for one, will see 50% fewer new students, easing demands on housing, but taking much-needed money away from a sector that's getting less public funding than it used to.
The way forward would be for colleges and universities to punch up and not down, right? Don't blame international students, don't blame the students, don't blame the kind of low-wage workers that are on campus.
The scapegoating is a concern, but Bhatia also worries what will happen in India when the promises of easy visas are harder to keep.
But eventually what happens when you put a threshold on something? Competition rises, and then eventually, corruption also plays a really important role then.
Solving one problem, say critics, could create a bigger crisis altogether. Mike Drolet, Global News, Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario.
Mysterious shipwreck. Next, awe over an ancient vessel in Newfoundland and Labrador.
I've been with the best, and I beat the best. I've retired more men than Social Security.
That's actor Carl Weathers in one of his best-known roles, Apollo Creed in the Rocky franchise. He died yesterday at the age of 76. His family says he passed peacefully in his sleep. Before his 50-year acting career, Weathers played professional football, including for the CFL's BC Lions. The Emmy-nominated star spanned genres from hit comedies like Happy Gilmore and Arrested Development to sci-fi franchises like Star Wars and Predator. There's something about an ancient shipwreck that captures the imagination, and the mysterious appearance of a wooden vessel, possibly from the 19th century on Newfoundland and Labrador's southwest coast, is playing on everyone's minds. Experts are digging into the ship and its origins. In collaboration with Renee Roy from Wreck House Press tonight, we bring you a closer view of the wreck and more on what people are doing to keep it from being swept back out to sea. Here's Heidi Petracek.
Every day, locals flock to see the mysterious shipwreck, partially visible during low tide at Cape Ray. But it's from the air that the view is truly spectacular. Drone footage showing the massive wreckage believed dislodged from its watery grave by powerful post-tropical storm Fiona more than a year ago. Ocean currents doing the rest.
I've been down here spending 4, 5, 6 hours almost every day watching it, make sure that nobody's touching it.
Lifelong Cape Ray resident Bert Osmond stands behind what's known as a ship's knee, part of its stern. All the debris now considered a protected provincial archaeological site.
It's overwhelming, man. That's the first time this stuff's been seen in probably 200 years, right?
Concerned the tides could sweep it all back out to sea, divers Sean Bath and Trevor Croft helped secure the wreckage using tethers to keep it in place.
She's rising up down on swells, right?
Provincial experts from the other side of the island, almost 900 kilometers away, are heading to the site to inspect it firsthand.
We'll be able to see what kind of wood that the shipwreck is made of, what size the timbers are, measure them up to see how long they are. From that, we might be able to figure out where it came from.
They believe it dates back to the 19th century, but plan to test the wood to find out for sure.
And then fill in the pieces of the story of where that ship came from, who was on it, when it was shipwrecked at Cape Ray.
In a province known as the Rock, this coastal community is no stranger to shipwrecks. Supply ships passed by regularly for 300 years, and storms brought at least a dozen down. But this, what many now call the ghost ship, has made that seafaring history come to life. Its full story, a mystery yet to be revealed. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
And that is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada is the SS Keewatin, docked in Kingston, Ontario. We love seeing your Canada. Please email your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks so much for watching and hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a great night.